There was once another kind of person. Not us. Not exactly. Something close to us. Something that walked these same hills, drank from these same rivers, looked up at the same stars, tens of thousands of years before our kind ever did. For most of human history, we did not know we were alone. We have called them Neanderthals, for the valley in Germany where their bones were first found. They had heavier bodies than ours, wider faces, larger eyes for the dim light of a colder world. Their brains were a little bigger than ours on average. They lived in Europe and Western Asia for nearly 300,000 years. They survived ice ages we would not have survived. And then, somewhere around 40,000 years ago, very quietly, they were gone. For a long time, we told ourselves a simple story about them. That they were brutes, that they grunted, that they were the rough draft, and we were the finished thing. The bones do not say this. The bones say they made tools that took years to learn. They buried their dead with care. They tended their elderly long after the elderly could not feed themselves. They used pigment. They wore ornaments. They almost certainly had language of some kind. They almost certainly sang. Small fraction of what they were still lives in us. In the bones of nearly every person on Earth. Tonight, we are going to sit with one of their families for one evening, 50,000 years ago, in a cave above a wild river in what will one day be called France. We are going to be very still and very quiet, and we are going to watch them live. The wind crosses the valley first. It comes down from the high country to the north, where the last of the autumn snow is already gathering on the limestone, and it moves through the bare trees the way water moves through a riverbed. Slow and certain, and without any urgency at all. It is late in the day. The sun has gone behind the western cliffs, but the sky above is still warm. That particular shade of amber that comes only in autumn. Only at this hour. And only when the air is very cold and very clear. Below the cliffs, a river runs. It is the Weser. Or rather, it is the river that, 50,000 years from now, men with maps will choose to call the Weser. Tonight, it has no name. It does not need one. It moves through the valley as it has always moved. Past the willows, past the reeds, past the pale stones that catch the last of the light. There is no village here. There are no fields. There are no roads. The valley you are looking at, this valley of soft hills and limestone shelters, this valley that will one day hold the painted caves of Lascaux, the abbeys of the Middle Ages, the vineyards and stone farmhouses of the modern world. This valley, tonight, is wild. Bison move along the river in small herds. A red deer steps out of the trees, listens, and steps back. High above, in a sky that is darkening now toward indigo, the first stars are beginning to appear. But if you look up at the cliff face, there, halfway up, where the limestone has weathered into a long horizontal hollow, you will see something else. A glow. It is small and warm and a little uncertain, the way fire is uncertain when it is being tended by hands rather than fed by wind. It flickers against the pale stone. It paints a soft orange shape against the dusk. Someone is home. We are going to walk up to that fire tonight. We are going to sit at its edge, and we are going to be very quiet, because the family inside that cave does not know we are here, and we do not want to disturb them. We have come a long way to find them. We have come 50,000 years. The people in that cave are not us. Not exactly. They share most of our story. They share most of our blood. A small fraction of what they are still lives, even now, in the bones of nearly every person who will ever read about them. But they are not us. They are something older. Something that walked these hills before our kind ever did. Something that learned, long before us, how to make a fire on a cold night, and how to keep it burning until morning. They are Neanderthals. And tonight, in this rock shelter, halfway up a cliff in what will one day be called the Dordogne, a small family of them is preparing for the long evening ahead. A woman, very old by the standards of her time, is feeding the fire. Two children are playing near the back wall, where the cave is warmest. A baby is asleep in a fold of fur. And outside, out in the cold blue of the gathering night, 3 hunters are coming home. One of them is carrying part of a deer across his shoulders. He is tired. The walk has been long. But the cave is close now, and the fire is close, and the people he loves are close, and so he keeps moving. He is the one we will follow tonight. We do not know his name. His people had names for each other. We are almost certain of this. But no name they ever spoke has survived the 50,000 years between his world and ours. So we will not give him one. We will simply call him the Father, because that is what he is, and because that is enough. He is perhaps 27 years old. Among his people, that is no longer young. He has lost 2 teeth on his lower jaw. There is a scar along his left forearm where, some years ago, a wild boar opened him almost to the bone. He survived. Most do not. Tonight he is bringing meat home. The fire on the cliff face flickers. He sees it through the trees, and something in him eases, though his shoulders do not yet drop, and his eyes do not yet leave the dark. There are still a few hundred steps between him and his family. Let us walk them with him. But before we follow him up the cliff, let us go ahead just for a little while and look at the place he is walking toward. Let us go inside. The cave is not deep. It is not really a cave at all, in the way you might be imagining one. There are no winding tunnels here, no hidden chambers, no mineral pools in the dark. This is a rock shelter, a long, shallow scoop in the cliff face, perhaps 20 paces across and 10 paces deep, with a high overhang of pale limestone above and a floor of trodden earth below. It is open to the valley. The wind can find it in the worst weather. But it faces south, and the cliff above it holds the day's warmth long into the evening, and for as long as anyone in this family can remember, this shelter has been home. But first, welcome to Softer Worlds, a place where history slows down, where the noise of the present fades, where we take you somewhere quieter, somewhere older, somewhere you've never been. But somehow it feels like home. The fire is at the center. Not at the very center. A little forward, closer to the cave mouth, so that the smoke can find the open air rather than gathering against the stone. The hearth is a rough circle of river cobbles, blackened by long use. The cobbles were brought up from the Vézère, one, by hands that are no longer alive. The fire itself is small at this hour. It has been burning since before dawn, and it will burn until after dawn tomorrow, and it has, in some unbroken form, been burning in this rock shelter for longer than any living person can remember. The grandmother, who is feeding it now, was fed by this fire when she was a child. Her mother was fed by it. Her mother's mother, perhaps, was fed by it. It is the oldest thing in the cave. Watch her hands. She is sitting on a folded hide, close to the hearth, but not too close. Her hands are dark and very lined, and missing the tip of one finger from a long ago accident she does not remember the cause of. She is breaking small sticks across her knee, pine, mostly, and some oak, and feeding them in one at a time. She does not feed the fire too quickly. She knows it. She has known it all her life. She knows when it wants air, and when it wants to be left alone, and when it wants a piece of dry resin to make it sing again. She tends it the way a much later kind of person, in a much later kind of place, will tend a garden. The smell of the fire is the smell of the cave. It is pine resin and old smoke, and the slightly sweet smell of bracken bedding, and underneath all of it, the deeper smell of stone and earth, and the long history of bodies that have slept here. If you closed your eyes, you would know you were home. Around the hearth, the cave is arranged the way it has always been arranged. To the left, where the wall curves back into the cliff, there are sleeping places, folded skins, dried grass, a few worn furs. The youngest sleep nearest the fire. The oldest sleep furthest back, where the stone is warmest in the deep night. To the right, against the wall, the family keeps its tools. There is a small pile of flint cores, dark and glassy. There are finished hand axes and scrapers, leaned against the rock. There are bone awls, polished from use. There are the long shafts of 2 spears, tipped with stone, propped against the limestone, where they will not fall. And further back, in the deepest part of the shelter, there is a place where the floor is slightly uneven, slightly raised. The grandmother does not look at it tonight. She rarely does, but she knows it is there. We will speak of that place later. For now, watch her hands. She breaks another stick. She feeds it in. The fire takes it, slowly, the way it takes everything she gives it. A small flame climbs the new wood and spreads. Behind her, the cave grows a little brighter. The 2 children near the back wall look up. There are 2 of them. A boy of perhaps 7 winters, and a girl of perhaps 4. They are not, strictly speaking, brother and sister, though they will be brother and sister to each other for the whole of their lives, which is what brother and sister really means. In a family of this size, the lines between cousin and sibling, between aunt and mother, are not the kind of lines that need to be drawn. The boy is sitting cross-legged on the floor, just at the edge of the firelight. In his lap, he holds a flint core. It is a stone, a piece of dark, glassy flint, about the size of a small loaf of bread, shaped roughly like a flattened egg. It was given to him by an uncle 3 days ago, after the men returned from a walk to the chalk ridges to the east. It is his. The first one that has ever been entirely his. He is trying to take a flake off of it. He has watched the men do this. He has watched it all his life. He has seen his father strike a core 100 times, 200 times, and seen the long, sharp flakes come away in single clean motions, ready to be shaped into a knife or a scraper or the tip of a spear. He cannot do it. He has tried 4 times tonight. Each time, the small hammerstone in his right hand has glanced off the core and left only a small white bruise on the flint. Once, the core slipped sideways and bit into his thumb. He did not cry. He looked at the bead of blood for a long moment, and then he wiped it on the hide beneath him, and he tried again. His grandmother is watching. She does not say anything. Among the people of this cave, there are not many words spent on small things. He knows she is watching. He knows that if he asked, she would come and put her hands over his and show him the angle, the weight, the small lift of the elbow that releases the strike. But he does not ask. Not yet. He wants to do it himself. His sister The 4-year-old is not interested in stones tonight. She is sitting against her mother's leg, though her mother is not in the cave at this moment, having gone with the hunters. The leg belongs to an aunt, and she is turning a small object over and over in her fingers. It is a bone, a vertebra from a red deer, picked clean and dried and polished smooth by a year of being carried in small pockets and small hands. It is her favorite thing. She does not have words for favorite, but she has the feeling, which is older than the word. She lifts the bone toward the fire. The firelight passes through the small holes where the spinal cord once ran, and she watches the orange glow on the other side, and she makes a small soft sound that is almost, but not quite, a laugh. The aunt looks down at her, and her face, which a moment ago was tired, softens. She places one large, scarred hand on the small head, briefly, and then takes it away. We do not know what Neanderthal children played with. We have not found their toys, the way we have found the toys of later children. The little carved horses, the small clay figures, the dolls of bone and cloth. Perhaps they did not have toys, in the way we mean the word. Perhaps every small bone, every smooth stone, every interesting thing the world handed to them became, briefly, a toy, and then was put down, and then was forgotten. We know that they were children. That much, the bones tell us. We have found their small skeletons, sometimes laid carefully in the earth, sometimes with stone tools placed beside them. We know they grew quickly and lived hard, and that many of them did not live long. That they were children. And on a night like this one, 50,000 years ago, in a cave on a cliff in a wild river valley, 2 of them were sitting near a fire. One trying to make a knife, one watching the firelight pass through a small piece of bone. And they were, for that long quiet hour, exactly what children are. The boy strikes the core again. This time, something gives. A long, thin flake comes away in his hand. It is uneven. It is not the kind of flake the men make. But it is a flake, and it is his, and he holds it up toward the fire to look at it. His grandmother, still feeding the hearth, glances over. She does not smile. But the corner of her mouth changes, just slightly. The way the corner of a mouth changes when a person sees a small good thing happen and chooses to keep the seeing of it to themselves. The boy puts the flake down beside him. He picks up the core. He begins again. Outside, the valley is fully dark now. The amber sky is gone. The stars are out. Not all of them, not yet, but the bright ones, the early ones, the ones that have been watched by every generation of every kind of person who has ever lived in this valley and every valley before it. Wind has come up. It is colder than it was an hour ago. And on the path that winds up the cliff face, the narrow switching path that the people of this cave have walked into the stone with their feet, year by year, for longer than anyone remembers, 3 figures are climbing. The father is in the middle. He is the one carrying the larger share of the deer, a hindquarter, wrapped in the hide, slung across his shoulders by a leather cord that bites into the skin of his neck. He has been carrying it for most of the afternoon. The kill was made at midday, in a small clearing 2 valleys to the south, and the butchering, done at the kill site as his people have always done their butchering, took longer than they had hoped. Ahead of him is his older brother, carrying the front quarters in a similar bundle. Behind him is a younger man, not quite a boy, not quite a hunter, perhaps 16 winters, carrying the smaller things, the liver, wrapped in leaves, a length of hide, a heavy bundle of long bones, kept whole, because the marrow inside them is one of the best things this family will eat all winter. None of them is speaking. They have been together since before dawn. Whatever needed to be said has been said, hours ago, in the small grunts and gestures and low voices that are the language of men who hunt together. Now they are tired, and they are cold, and they are very close to home, and there is no need for words. The father's eyes, even now, do not stop moving. He watches the trees on either side of the path. He watches the darker shape of the cliff above. He listens, not for any one thing, but for everything. For the particular quality of silence that means the valley is at peace tonight, or for the small wrong sound that would mean it is not. He has been doing this his whole life. He does not know how to stop. There is a moment, perhaps 30 paces below the cave, when he pauses. He does not pause for long. His brother and the young one keep climbing. They do not notice. He simply stops and listens, and looks back across the dark valley below. The river is invisible now. The distant herds are invisible. There is only the deep blue of the night, and the wind, and somewhere very far away, the faint call of a wolf. He is the man of the family, or one of them. There are no titles in this cave, no ranks, but there are responsibilities, and he holds his. While he is awake, his family is safe. That is the agreement his life has made with the world. He did not choose it. It was simply waiting for him when he became old enough to carry it. He listens for one more long moment. The valley is at peace tonight. He turns back toward the cave, and he climbs. The fire above is brighter now than it was when he saw it from the trees. When he reaches the lip of the shelter, the smell of it reaches him first. The smoke, the resin, the warmth, the small bodies of his family, the dried bracken, the old stone. He has smelled this every night of his life. He does not consciously notice it. But something in his shoulders, which has been held tight all day, begins, very slowly, to loosen. He steps into the cave. The girl, the 4-year-old with the deer bone, sees him first. She does not run to him. Among her people, small children do not run to returning hunters. The hunters might be carrying things, or be tired, or be in the middle of putting down a load that should not be dropped. She has learned this without anyone teaching her. She simply stands up, and she watches him, and her face does the particular small thing that her face does when he has come home. He sees her. He does not smile exactly. It is hard to know whether his people smiled in the way we do. But something in his face, the eyes, the slight lift of the brow, speaks to her, and she understands it perfectly, and she sits back down with her bone, satisfied. He is home. That is enough. He lowers the deer hindquarter to the floor near the back wall, where the meat will be safe from the fire and from any small creature that might find its way in during the night. His brother does the same with the front quarters. The young one sets his bundle down and immediately, without being asked, goes to the hearth and adds a piece of wood to the fire. The grandmother nods at him once. He is welcome. The cave, which has been quiet all evening, is now full of small motion. The tying of bundles, the unrolling of hides, the cracking of joints as tired men sit down for the first time in hours. No one speaks. No one needs to. The work of being home has its own quiet rhythm, and they have all known it, all their lives. Outside, the wind grows a little colder. Inside, the fire grows a little higher. It is time to eat. The cooking begins simply. There is no ceremony. There is no waiting. The meat is fresh, and the family is hungry, and so the older brother, who has, for many years now, been the one who cooks on nights when the hunt has been good, takes his stone knife and begins to cut. He cuts long, thin strips from the hindquarter, working close to the bone where the meat is darkest. He does not waste. Every piece that comes off the bone is laid on a flat slab of stone that has been warming near the fire for half the evening. The strips are arranged carefully, not piled, so that the heat reaches all of them at once. The smell, when the first strips touch the hot stone, is the smell that has called every member of this family home for as long as they have known what home is. It is dark and rich and a little sweet. It is the smell of fat finding fire. The boy, who has been working at his flint core, looks up. The girl, who has been turning her bone in her fingers, sets it down. Even the baby, who has been asleep in furs against the back wall, stirs and makes a small sound and is comforted by an ant and goes back to sleep. While the meat cooks, the women and the men because there is no clear line in this cave between women's work and men's work, though there are tendencies and habits and things each person is better at than others. Bring out the rest of the meal. There is a clay-lined pit dug into the floor near the hearth, and inside it, packed in warm ash, are roots that were dug from the riverbank 3 days ago. They have been roasting slowly all afternoon. They are sweet now, and soft, and the skins peel away in long ribbons. There are also nuts, hazelnuts, gathered in great quantities at the end of summer and stored in a hide bag at the back of the cave. Someone has been cracking them all evening in a small, steady rhythm, and there is now a small pile of pale kernels on a flat piece of bark. There is no salt. There is no bread. There is no drink other than water, brought up from the river in a folded hide that holds, just barely, what it is asked to hold. It is enough. When everything is ready, the family eats. They eat together around the fire in a rough circle that everyone takes their place in without anyone having to be told where to sit. The hunters eat first, not because they are more important, but because they are hungriest, and because the others have been waiting, and because this is the way it has always been done. The grandmother eats next. Then the women who have been tending the cave. Then the children who have been given small pieces all along, and who are not, by this point, very hungry. The father takes a long strip of meat, and he chews it slowly, and he closes his eyes for a moment as he does. He has eaten this meat in his mind for the whole of the long walk home. The grandmother sits near the fire, and she is given her food differently. She has lost most of her teeth. She has lost them slowly over many winters, some to age, some to the hard, gritty diet of her people, some to a fall, long ago, that she does not like to remember. She cannot chew the strips of meat the way the others can. So her daughter, a woman of perhaps 30, with strong arms and quick hands, takes a small piece of meat, and she chews it, and she works it soft in her own mouth, and then she takes it from her mouth and gives it to her mother. The grandmother takes it without comment. She eats it. The daughter takes another piece. This happens in silence. It happens the way breathing happens, without thought, without ceremony, without anyone in the cave finding it remarkable. It is what this family does for the people in it, who can no longer chew. It is what this family has always done. The grandmother chews her soft meat. The fire burns. The children gnaw on roasted roots. Outside, somewhere down the valley, a hyena calls and is not answered. I want to stop here, just for a moment, and tell you something true. The bones at La Ferrasi, the place where this cave is, the place we are sitting tonight, have been studied for more than 100 years. The skeletons of the people who lived here have been examined and re-examined, and we know things about them now that no one in this cave will ever know about themselves. We know that several of them lived to ages at which they could not have hunted, could not have made their own tools, could not, in some cases, have chewed their own food. And we know that they were fed anyway, cared for, kept alive, sometimes for years, by the others, by the strong ones, by the families they had. There is a word for this, in the language of the people who will, 50,000 years from this night, write books about the people in this cave. The word is compassion. It is older than we used to think. It is older than cities, and older than farming, and older than writing, and older than every name and every kingdom and every god that any human being has ever recorded. It is at least as old as this fire. The grandmother accepts another piece of soft meat from her daughter. She does not know that, 50,000 years from now, anyone will care that she was fed. She does not know that her bones, and her family's bones, will be laid out on tables in distant cities, and studied with great care, and written about with great tenderness, by people whose languages she could not begin to imagine. She only knows that she is warm, and that she is full, and that her family is around her. That is what she knows. That is enough. After the meal, the cave grows quiet again. The fire is fed once more. A larger piece of wood this time, oak, that will burn slowly for a long while. And then everyone settles into the long, soft hour that comes between eating and sleeping. The hour that, in every cave and every house and every home that has ever existed, is the hour when the day is finally allowed to be over. The father is sitting with his back against the cave wall. He has eaten. It's eaten. He has drunk a little water. The leather cord that bit into his neck all afternoon is unwound and laid beside him. His shoulders, finally, have come down. He is mending the spear. The shaft has worked loose at the head. The binding of sinew that holds the stone point to the wood has stretched over the long autumn of use, and tonight he is taking the binding off, soaking it briefly in a small wooden bowl of water, and rewrapping it. The work is careful. He has done it many times. His hands know the pattern even when his mind drifts. His mind drifts often tonight. He is thinking about the deer they killed. The way it ran at first, and then the way it did not. He is thinking about the long walk home and the place on the path where he stopped to listen. He is thinking, without quite thinking it, about his children. The boy with the flint, the girl with the bone, the baby in the furs, and about the years ahead of them, which are many and uncertain, and not his to know. He is not a man who thinks in words. He may not think in words at all, in the way you do. We do not know, for certain, what kind of thinking happened inside the heads of his people. We know they made tools. We know they made fire. We know they buried their dead. We know they made jewelry, sometimes small ornaments of bone and shell, pierced and strung. We know they used pigment. We know they cared for their old. Whatever kind of thinking those things require, his head is full of it tonight. Across the fire, his older brother is working too. He is scraping a hide, the hide of the deer, stretched across his lap, being worked clean with a flat stone tool. The motion is steady. The sound is soft. It is the sound of every evening of every winter of this cave's long memory, the slow rasp of stone on hide, somewhere just below the level of the fire's quiet crackle. The young one, the boy of 16, the almost hunter, is asleep already. He has eaten more than he meant to, and the warmth of the fire has done the rest. He is curled against the back wall, mouth slightly open, breathing slow. The aunt who held the 4-year-old earlier is now braiding a length of cord. Her fingers move quickly. The cord is made of long plant fibers, twisted together, and it will be used, when it is finished, to bind something. A tool, a bundle, perhaps the wrapping of a child's foot in winter. She is humming. We do not know if Neanderthals sang. We have looked at the small bone in their throats, the hyoid, the bone that anchors the muscles of the voice, and it is shaped, more or less, like ours. Their ear bones, too, are tuned to the same range of sound. They could have sung. They could have heard each other sing. Whether they did, whether on a quiet evening like this one, by a fire like this one, a woman in this cave hummed under her breath while she braided cord, the way humans have always hummed under their breath while they worked with their hands, we will never know. But the bones say it was possible. And the soft sound coming from her now, in this cave, on this night, is something. Something the cave has heard many times before. The 4-year-old has fallen asleep against her aunt's leg. Her small hand is still wrapped around the deer bone vertebra. Her mouth is open. A small line of drool is making its way down toward the hide beneath her. No one moves to wake her. No one will until it is time to lay her down. The boy with the flint has not fallen asleep yet, but he is close. He has finished a second flake, a better one than the first, and he is holding both of them, one in each hand, and looking at them. His grandmother, still by the hearth, watches him. She does not say good. She does not, in fact, say anything. But after a moment, she reaches out, and she takes one of the flakes from his hand, the better one, and she turns it over in her fingers, and she holds it up briefly to the firelight. Then she gives it back. The boy keeps it tightly in his fist all the way to sleep. It begins, as it always begins, with the children. The aunt who has been braiding cord sets the cord aside. She lifts the 4-year-old very gently. The small body is heavy with sleep, the way small bodies are, and she carries her to the place near the fire where the youngest sleep. She lays her down on a folded hide. She arranges a fur over her. The girl does not wake. Her small hand is still closed around the bone. The boy with the flint is next. He is, by now, more asleep than awake, and he goes where he is moved without protest. His grandmother, without rising, simply by leaning across, takes him by the shoulders and lays him down beside his sister. She tucks a fur up to his chin. She closes his hand around his flake because she has seen that he wants it there. The baby, already in furs at the back wall, is moved closer to the children so that all 3 of them are together in a small warm row near the fire. The adults arrange themselves more slowly. The young one, the almost hunter, does not have to be moved. He has been asleep against the wall for nearly an hour. Someone, at some point, has placed a fur over him. The aunt lies down near the children, on the side away from the fire, so that her back is toward the cool stone, and her body is between her sleeping niece and the cave wall. This is deliberate. This is what she does every night. The older brother, the one who cooked, the one who scraped the hide, lies down on the other side of the fire, where the heat is good and the smoke does not gather. His wife, we have not spoken much of her tonight, but she is here. She has been here all evening, quiet, working with her hands as the others worked with theirs, lies down beside him. The grandmother stays by the fire. She has not yet lain down. She rarely does, until everyone else has. The father is the last of the working adults to settle. He has finished mending his spear. He has set it carefully against the wall with the other spears, and he has, without making any obvious move toward it, walked to the cave mouth. He stands there for a long time. The night beyond the cave is enormous. The sky is full of stars now, deep field of them, more stars than any city of any later century will ever see, more stars than most people of his far future will ever know exist. The Milky Way crosses the sky in a long, pale river. The valley below is invisible. The wind has died down. He listens. He has done this every night of his adult life. He has stood in the mouth of this cave, or some other cave, after his family has been fed and his children are asleep, and he has listened to the night, He listens for wolves. He listens for the cough of a cave bear in the high country. He listens for the voices of other people, which are rare in these valleys, and which are not always friendly. He listens for the wind shifting, for the sound of the river changing, for the small wrong sound that means something is moving where it should not be moving. Tonight there is nothing. Tonight, the valley is at peace. He stands there a little longer than he needs to. It is not because he does not trust the silence. It is because, after a long day, this is the moment of his that is most his own. The fire is behind him. His family is behind him. The whole of the dark world is in front of him, and for a few minutes, before he turns and lies down with the others, it belongs to him alone. He lets it. Now I want to tell you something else that is true. In the back of this cave, in the place where the floor is slightly raised, the place the grandmother does not look at, there are people buried. Not buried deep, in the way later kinds of people will bury their dead, but buried, placed carefully, laid with their knees drawn up, in shallow graves dug into the floor of the shelter, with stone tools sometimes placed beside them, and sometimes a small offering of bone. There are 8 of them at La Ferrasi. 2 of them are children. 1 of them is an infant. We do not know what this family believed about death. We do not know if they thought their dead were sleeping, or watching, or gone, or somewhere we cannot imagine. We do not know if they spoke to them. We do not know if they wept. But we know they buried them. Carefully. With thought. With objects placed beside them, as though those objects might be needed, somewhere, by someone. That is mourning. That is memory. That is meaning. It is older than every cathedral, older than every poem, older than every song that any of our kind has ever written about loss. It is at least as old as this cave. The father, at the cave mouth, turns. He walks back to the fire. He does not look at the raised place in the floor. He has not looked at it tonight, and he will not, but he knows where it is. He has always known. He lies down beside his wife. The grandmother feeds the fire one last small piece of wood, and then she lies down too, in her own place at the back of the cave, where the stone has been warm all evening from the day's heat above. The cave is quiet now. 8 people, breathing by a fire on a cliff above a wild river, 50,000 years before the world becomes the world we know. The fire burns lower. Not out, never out, not on a night like this. The grandmother has fed it carefully enough that it will hold its shape until morning, and someone, by the dim early light, will come and feed it again. But lo, the flames are gone. There are only coals now, deep red, breathing softly under their own gray skin. The light in the cave has changed. The walls, which were warm orange while the flames were high, are darker now. The color of old leather, of dried blood, of autumn earth. The shapes of the sleeping family are soft against them. The grandmother snores, very gently. One of the children turns over. If you let your eyes adjust, if you sit at the edge of this cave for a long time and let the small darkness become familiar, you will begin to see things you did not see before. The cave painting at the back wall, which we have not spoken of tonight. A few lines drawn in red ochre that may be a hand or may be nothing. The notch in the limestone above the hearth, worn smooth by the passing of countless heads ducking under it. The small worn places in the floor, where particular people have sat for so many years that the stone itself remembers them. This cave has been lived in. This cave has been loved, in the way that places are loved by the people who live in them, without anyone deciding to love it, without anyone calling it love, simply by everyone returning, every evening, for 100 years. Now we begin to move backward. We rise, very slowly, from the floor of the shelter. We pass through the cave mouth, where the father stood not long ago. We move out, into the cold, into the open air. The cliff face falls away beneath us. The path winds down toward the valley floor, invisible now, lost in the dark, and the river runs somewhere below, and the trees stand in their long autumn quiet, and the herds of bison and red deer are bedded down for the night in places we will never see. We move higher. From this height, the cave is only a small glow in the cliff face. Single warm point in a long, pale wall of stone. Around it, the valley is enormous. Beyond the valley, the hills. Beyond the hills, the high country to the north, where the snow is gathering. Beyond that, the great cold of the glaciers, which still cover much of the world that the people in this cave will never see and have never imagined. And above all of it, the stars. So many stars. The ones we know, the ones that will much later be given names and stories and constellations, and the ones we have lost, the ones that have moved, the ones that no eye in any later century will ever see in quite the same arrangement again. The people in the cave below have looked at these stars all their lives. They have no names for them. They do not need names for them. They have watched them rise and set and turn through the seasons, and they have known. Without knowing, they knew that the stars are something that does not change while the world below changes constantly. It is the oldest comfort. It is older than the fire. Inside the cave, the family sleeps. The grandmother sleeps. The father sleeps. The mother sleeps. The aunts and uncles sleep. The boy with his flake clutched in his fist sleeps. The girl with her deer bone in her hand sleeps. The baby sleeps. The almost hunter sleeps. The fire keeps watch. In the morning, they will rise. The fire will be fed. The day will begin again, with its small work, its familiar movements, its quiet rhythms. The children will be older. The grandmother will be a little more tired. The hunters will go out, or they will not. The river will run. They will live many more days like this one. Then, eventually, they will not. Their bones will stay in this cave. Some of them will be laid carefully in the earth, with small things placed beside them, by hands we will never see. Tens of thousands of years will pass. The cave will be forgotten, and remembered, and forgotten again. Other kinds of people will come and go in this valley. And then, one day, a day so far in the future that no one in this cave can possibly imagine it, men with brushes and cameras and patient eyes will come to this rock shelter, and they will take the bones out very carefully, and they will lay them on tables, and they will write about them with great love, because the bones are the only voices these people have left. And the bones will say, "We lived here. We tended a fire. We fed our old. We buried our children. We were kind to one another in a hard world, on cold nights, by the light of small flames, in a cave above a river." That, too, is history.